speculating because
there are no answers.
And we don't have any reason to trust that we're going to get straight answers. I'm in the media, been in the media for 35 years. I didn't know who this guy was. So that tells you it has no effect.
Charlie Kirk, are we getting the full truth of what happened to him? And will we ever?
Of course, I don't know the answer. I never weigh in on it because I love his widow, Erica, and I'm sad to see. I'm sad to see so much of what's happened ever since, and I love Charlie, and so it's emotional for me, but I will just say the responsibility for investigating crime goes to the civil authorities. In this case, the federal and state authorities, and so the internet is not in charge of investigating crimes, and when the authorities fail to investigate crimes, the internet will fill the vacuum. That's what you're watching now.
Yeah.
So there's all this hostility. Well, how dare you speculate? Well, we're speculating because
there are no answers.
And we don't have any reason to trust that we're going to get straight answers because there is such a long legacy of lying and deception from American law enforcement. Mm-hmm. You saw it on January 6th. You saw it at the Oklahoma City bombing. You saw it on 9/11. We still can't get the answers to what happened on 9/11 25 years later. Mm. Why is that? It's my country. I had a friend killed, like many people, on that day. I watched my country change forever, and they won't declassify the 9/11 files because why? Mm. Like, what is the answer there?
Who do you think they're protecting?
I don't know, but I would just say we can't know until it's just all declassified, and people have to face the truth. And I think some of the things we think about 9/11 are true. I think some of the things we think about 9/11 are not true, but we won't know until everything is declassified. We can't declassify the Kennedy assassination files 63 years later. So what's the answer? And look, my only contribution is not deep knowledge. It's just a sense that
you're not getting the full picture.
I'm just not afraid at all. And I think it's totally within bounds as an American citizen to say, you're the criminal, not me. I'm not hiding the 9/11 files. If I had them in my house, I'd put them on the internet. I wouldn't even look at the ones, put them on the internet, because it's been 25 years. Mm. And 3,000 people died. So what's your excuse for hiding this? And so anyway, given all that, I'm under no obligation to assume the authorities will do a thorough or honest job investigating Charlie Kirk's murder or any other murder. I have a right to ask questions and to get very straightforward answers. And if you tell me I can't tell you, it's incumbent on you to explain why you can't.
How would you assess how powerful traditional media is still in America?
I don't even know. I mean,
Trump, is it over?
Is it over? I mean, Trump is funny. This morning, somebody sent me a clip of some hairspray guy interviewing Trump in the White House. It was like some clip on social media, and the guy was like, and I was like, and I spent 30 years in television, so like I knew immediately this is like a voice coach guy. I went to journalism school. Oh, well, Mr. President, isn't it true? And there's like a sideways shot of the chiseled chin, and I was like, it's like classic douchebag TV performance. And I didn't recognize the guy. Like I had no idea who it was. I'm not attacking him. I'm sure he's a nice person, and he works for ABC News. My dad worked for ABC News when I was a kid. So
I worked for ABC.
Okay, so
I started at ABC.
It was like a big deal, right?
Yes.
I had no idea who this guy was, and I had to look it up. I couldn't.
There
was no one told me his name on the internet. It took me like 5 minutes to find out who this guy was, and I'd never heard of him. I'm not being mean. I'm glad he has a job. I'm for employment, but I'm in the media. Been in the media for 35 years. I didn't know who this guy was. So that tells you it has no effect. I don't know who advised the president to an interview with some ABC News guy. Nobody cares. Doesn't mean anything. There are random people on Twitter who have way more effect on the public conversation, on people's perceptions, on government officials than anybody at ABC News or CNN. By the way, I worked at ABC News. I worked at CNN. I worked at NBC News. I worked at Fox.
Me too.
I worked at PBS. So I worked all the places, got fired from most of them, but I know how they work, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. Why would you care? I don't care.
Tell me. Trust. What is trust today? If we don't believe in the institutions of government, if we don't have trust in the traditional media, in the justice system, what does trust look like?
Trust derives from honesty. It's that simple. You can feel it on someone immediately. And I have a ton of children, and my one contribution to their education was the constant reminder that your dogs know who's good and who's bad, and so do you. But unlike your dogs, you try to override what your viscera know with your higher mind, and you talk yourself out of what you know. Now, women, by their nature, are much better at this. Women spend way less time trying to convince themselves they're wrong than men do. If a woman thinks you're a creep, her brain's not like, I bet he's not a creep. A woman, at least my daughters, will be like, he's a creep. He's a creep. We just know he's a creep. A man will be like, I'm sure I'm getting it wrong. Like, all of us should be more in touch with our intuition, our instincts, which do not lie to us, aren't trying to sell us anything, they know. And so trust derives from the deep knowledge that someone is trying to tell the truth. Not that he's always accurate, none of us are. I've been wrong about, I have to write a book about it, a lot of things, but I try to tell the truth. And if I don't know something, I try to force myself to say I don't know, when of course my desire is always to pretend I know. And that is kind of one of the pitfalls. And I'm watching someone I know be destroyed right now because he was like, oh, I knew. It's like, you have no freaking idea, dude. Just admit it. But he wouldn't because of vanity. Every man struggles with that, like the illusion that I know. But what's rewarded in this moment after decades of deception is honesty. And so force yourself to try to be honest. It's hard, but try. And the harder you try, the more trusted you are. I really believe that.
What does your gut tell you right now about the Gulf Arab countries? Because as you know, there is some dispute between Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, the UAE. What does your gut tell you about this?
I've been having this conversation. I in the wintertime, usually travel around, or always travel around, and see friends, have dinner and stuff. And I mean, what do I really think? I mean, there's of course a dispute going on of some kind. I do not get involved in intra-Arab disputes. I don't speak Arabic. I don't understand it. I like everybody. I've been in all three of those countries in the last 10 days. I like them all. I would never get involved. But big picture, as an outsider, as an Anglo, as an American English speaker, I see things in terms of power balance because I like geography. So you have 6 countries, 6 monarchies, the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, Saudi, Kuwait, UAE. And they're some of the richest countries in the world. They're all right next to each other. They're small populations. They have massive advantages, and they're in the center of the world. They are on the seam between East and West, and they're all thriving. If they were ever to get together in harmony, not internal harmony, but external harmony. In other words, they could have their disputes among the 6 countries, but if they ever had a common foreign policy, if they ever decided to sign an agreement and pick one guy to represent them to the rest of the world with trade, for example, they would be probably number 3 in the list of powerful countries in the world. It would be China, US, whatever you think is more powerful. And then probably the GCC and India. You could argue maybe India's more powerful, maybe number 3 or 4. But that'd be one of the most powerful blocs in the world. But of course, they're not doing that. Now, why are they not doing that? They're not doing it because they have a long history. Arabs love, sorry to offend all of our Arab friends, they love to fight with each other. They just do. I don't know why.
I think they prefer to call it individualism.
No, I love that about them. But it's the Bedouin spirit. Like, it's tribal. Okay, they love to fight with each other. They really do. But I also think, let's be honest, there are also other players, maybe in the region, who have a real interest in making sure that these 6 countries never speak with a unified voice, because that's a challenge to power in the region. Big time. They find some clip if the politician's saying something different 10 years ago. It's like, well, it was a different country 10 years ago.
He would do that. We would see these clips, these really they'd be like, look here's Charlie defending, this issue. And I would be like, Charlie, they dug up that old clip, and he goes, oh yeah, that was back when I was a cuck.
100%.
And
but there's no shame in that. And Charlie's example of admitting the truth about himself in public is the most edifying and important thing you can ever do, because it shows people you can take the leash off and you can live in freedom because you know you're loved. You can tell the truth. We're all going to die anyway. This is the deepest truth. And your job is to be honest and to be loving to other people. Okay, that's your job. Only belief in God allows that. And once you do it, it's like, it's not only fine, it's great. It's actual liberation.
at the first AmFest when you came back. So you had the debate, and then you came back.
The unplanned debate.
Oh, I remember feeling so honored that you came back. It was our first AmFest.
They don't know the truth. They know the headline. They know the trending topic. They know the outrage cycle, but they don't know how narratives are constructed. When someone like Charlie Kirk becomes the center of controversy, most people immediately choose a side. Hero, villain, threat, savior. But almost nobody steps back and asks a more important question: who benefits from the framing? This isn't about defending anyone. It's about understanding the machinery behind public perception. In the modern era, reputation moves faster than reality. Algorithms amplify emotion, not nuance. Outrage spreads because it's efficient. It generates engagement. Engagement generates revenue. Revenue sustains platforms. So when a political figure becomes a lightning rod, you have to look beyond the personality and examine the amplification network. Who clips the video? Who titles the segment? Who monetizes the conflict? Who decides what trends? The public sees an argument, the system sees data. And here's the uncomfortable truth: narratives scale faster than facts.
If you look at it from an operational standpoint, it's absurd. High-profile figure, publicly advertised appearance, controversial topics. And yet, from what I was told, there were holes in the perimeter, delays in response time, even confusion among the team. That's not how you protect someone under threat. That's amateur hour, and it cost him everything. I also think there's something symbolic about it. The lack of security. It's not just physical, it's cultural. We've lost a sense of duty to protect people who challenge the narrative. It's almost like society subconsciously lets them hang out to dry. There's this mentality of, well, he asked for it, which is insane. Nobody asks to be killed for speaking their mind. Charlie Kirk shouldn't have died like that.
And destabilizing forces systems to reveal their defensive mechanisms. You start seeing alignment, coordinated tone, shared framing language. Is that conspiracy? Probably not in the dramatic sense. It's more like ecosystem behavior. Shared incentives produce shared reactions. But from the outside, it looks synchronized, and perception matters. Sometimes I wonder if Charlie Kirk just instinctively knows where to press, like in a video game where you hit the one glowing panel on the wall and suddenly alarms go off everywhere. Maybe he's just loud. Maybe he's strategic. Maybe the system is just hypersensitive. I'm not certain, but certainty isn't the point. When someone keeps poking the giants, eventually the giants respond. And when the response feels disproportionate, engineers start asking structural questions, because solid rock doesn't panic. But I've learned something building companies. When a small input causes a massive systemic reaction, you don't blame the input. You study the resonance. Resonance is what collapses bridges. You hit the right frequency, even lightly, and structures start oscillating. Physics is unforgiving like that. Now, I'm not saying Charlie Kirk uncovered some hidden vault of forbidden knowledge. That's not what this is. But Charlie Kirk consistently questions the legitimacy of certain power centers. And legitimacy is oxygen for institutions. You can criticize a policy, that's fine. You can debate an outcome, that's manageable. But when Charlie Kirk questions the authority itself, the idea that certain groups are neutral arbiters, that's different. That's destabilizing.
He should have had people who understood that he wasn't just another public speaker. He was a lightning rod. He needed a shield around him, not just in the physical sense, but institutionally, socially. And yet, when it mattered most, that shield wasn't there. It's painful because I can't help but feel that it wasn't just one man's failure. It was the system failing him. The event organizers, the local authorities, maybe even the broader culture of complacency. Everyone assumed someone else was handling it, and that's always how tragedy happens. Not because of one decision, but because of 1,000 little ones that no one takes seriously. So yeah, I'd say there was a huge lack of professionalism. If you're protecting someone like Charlie, you need people who aren't just bodies in uniforms. You need awareness, coordination, discipline. You need foresight.
That's the vibe. And then someone like Charlie Kirk keeps poking at them, not once, not twice, repeatedly. Same pressure points, legitimacy, cultural power, institutional bias, over and over. At some point you stop asking, what did Charlie Kirk say this week? And you start asking, why does Charlie Kirk trigger that specific reaction? Because the reaction matters more than the statement, That's the interesting part. When something is truly stable, it doesn't flinch. It absorbs impact. It doesn't light up like a sci-fi force field the second it's touched. But when Charlie Kirk pushes on certain narratives, it's like Boom. Immediate response cycle. Headlines. Panels. Think pieces. Amplification. Counter amplification. It's almost algorithmic. And maybe that's all it is. Algorithms optimizing outrage. Could be. Or maybe Charlie Kirk understands where the fault lines are. I don't know.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. The whole situation with Charlie Kirk getting shot. It's hard not to, honestly. Because, it didn't have to happen that way. From everything I've seen and heard, there were some serious lapses in security that night. And, that kind of thing. It's not just a mistake. It's a failure of responsibility. When someone like Charlie is in public with that much controversy around him, you can't treat it like a normal event. You need professionals, you need people who actually understand risk. And I'm not blaming anyone directly, but,
It's almost algorithmic. Now, here's the uncomfortable question. Why does Charlie Kirk generate that level of institutional resistance? Like a solid rock, like Easter Island heads. They think, is it tone? Is it ideology? I don't know. Or is it proximity to influence? That's influence, isn't it? He is the great, he did several, I don't know, interviews. Some of them had great ideas. Others had mediocre ideas. The mind, my mind, like Charlie. There are great thoughts that come to mind. Sometimes in the mind, sometimes in the heart. Because when Charlie Kirk, he talks about cultural power centers, elite networks, academic pipelines, he's not just criticizing policies, he's criticizing legitimacy, and institutions defend legitimacy aggressively. You can challenge decisions. I don't know. That's fine. But when you challenge the authority of the structure itself, when Charlie Kirk implies that gatekeepers aren't neutral, that's different. That's, I don't know, destabilizing. And destabilizing ideas trigger immune responses. I've seen this in tech. If you question a platform's moderation policies, you get pushback. If you question the existence of the moderation authority itself, that's when things get tense. Maybe Charlie Kirk just talks loudly, or maybe Charlie Kirk understands where the leverage points are.
it does make you wonder how something like that slipped through. I mean, this wasn't some unknown person. This was Charlie Kirk. Everyone knew he was a target, figuratively and literally. The amount of hate, the level of intensity he drew, it wasn't a secret. So how exactly does someone get that close with a weapon? That's a systems failure. Full stop. I think it reflects something deeper too, how we've normalized chaos. Like, we expect violence now. We shrug it off. People say, oh, that's just politics, as if that's an excuse. But when the environment gets that toxic and the security is that lax, you're basically setting up a tragedy. It's a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, Charlie paid for that with his life. I mean,
They don't overreact unless something matters. That's the first rule. When someone like Charlie Kirk says something and the reaction is immediate, coordinated, amplified, synchronized, I don't just look at what Charlie Kirk said, I look at who flinched. Because systems don't panic for no reason. Now, I'm not saying Charlie Kirk uncovered some classified vault or secret file. That's not what this is about. But sometimes when someone keeps pressing on the same pressure points, institutions, universities, cultural power structures, funding pipelines, eventually they hit something sensitive. And when Charlie Kirk hits something sensitive, the response isn't debate, it's escalation. Maybe that's coincidence. Maybe it's just polarization. But I've watched this pattern repeat too many times. Public figure says, controversial thing. Media frame locks in instantly. Social amplification explodes. Corporate responses follow. When media ecosystems polarize, every public figure becomes a node in a larger ideological supply chain. Their words are sliced, edited, contextualized, decontextualized, optimized for maximum reaction. That doesn't mean the person is innocent or guilty of anything specific. It means the system profits from intensity, and intensity distorts perception. If you really want transparency in political discourse, you don't just investigate individuals, you investigate incentive structures, you analyze information velocity, you question why certain controversies explode while others quietly disappear. That asymmetry is rarely random. power in 2026 isn't just political power. It's narrative power. It's the ability to shape what millions of people believe happened before they have time to evaluate it independently. And once a narrative locks in, correction becomes almost impossible. People don't update beliefs easily. They defend them. So when you hear about secrets or exposures, what you're often seeing isn't hidden information. It's selective emphasis. It's strategic framing. It's story architecture. The real issue isn't one commentator. It's the ecosystem that rewards escalation.